Everyone can name the famous killers, the great white, the lion, the cobra. But some of the deadliest creatures on Earth have names you have probably never heard, animals that quietly injure, poison, and kill people every single year while staying almost completely unknown. Some are tiny, some are strange, and a few carry a body count that would shock you. These are 10 of the deadliest animals you have never heard of. And we are starting with one that might be the most deceptive of them all because it looks like a toy. The puss caterpillar might be the most adorable, dangerous animal in the world. It looks like a tiny, walking tuft of golden fur, so soft and harmless that children have reached out to pet it. That is exactly the mistake. Hidden beneath that fuzzy coat is a dense layer of venomous spines, and the moment you touch it, they break off in your skin and release their toxin. The pain is immediate and brutal, often described as far worse than a bee sting, radiating up the whole limb, and it can come with nausea, fever, and a racing heart. In severe reactions, the venom can trigger dangerous symptoms that land victims in the hospital. It is considered one of the most venomous caterpillars in North America, and its numbers have been rising across the southern United States. Doctors have reported cases where the pain was severe enough to be mistaken for a heart attack, or where victims developed numbness and swelling that spread alarmingly fast. The venomous spines can even remain active in shed skins and on surfaces after the caterpillar has moved on. A creature that looks like it belongs in a cartoon is one you should never, ever pet. Next is an animal that looks like it crawled out of a horror film, because in a way it did. The giant centipede, in its largest form, can grow up to 30 centimeters long, a rippling ribbon of armored segments and dozens of legs. It is a relentless predator, and it is one of the few invertebrates large enough to hunt small mammals. There is famous footage of one climbing a cave wall in Venezuela, hanging upside down from the ceiling, and snatching bats straight out of the air as they fly past. Its venom is delivered through a pair of modified front legs that work like fangs, and a bite causes ferocious pain, swelling, and sometimes fever and tissue damage. Deaths are rare, but they have happened, including a tragic case of a young child killed by a centipede bite. What unnerves people most is how deliberate it is. It does not blunder into you. It hunts, tracking movement and vibration, and it will stand its ground and fight rather than flee. Anyone who has kept one knows the golden rule: never let it touch bare skin. For an animal with no venomous reputation in most of the world, it is a shockingly effective killer at its own scale. Our next creature is a legend of the rivers of India and Nepal, and its story is genuinely unsettling. The goonch is a giant catfish, a monster of the deep, fast-flowing pools of the Himalayan foothills, capable of growing over 2 meters long and weighing as much as a person. It uses a powerful suction mouth to inhale prey whole, and it lurks in the darkest, deepest holes of the river. Between 1998 and 2007, a series of people vanished beneath the surface of the Kali River, dragged down in front of witnesses and never seen again. Investigators ruled out crocodiles, which do not live in those cold waters, and suspicion fell on an enormous goonch, possibly grown unnaturally large. The truth is still debated, and much of it lives in folklore rather than hard science, with local tales of giant catfish haunting the river's cremation sites. But whether myth or monster, the goonch remains one of the most feared and least known freshwater predators on Earth. You have heard of vampires. You may not have thought of the animal that inspired the legend as a genuine killer, but it is. The vampire bat is small, barely the size of your thumb, and it feeds exclusively on blood, usually from sleeping livestock, occasionally from sleeping humans. It lands quietly, makes a tiny, painless incision with razor-sharp teeth, and laps up the blood while its victim sleeps on, unaware. The blood loss itself is trivial. The real danger is what the bite can carry: rabies. Vampire bats are a major source of rabies transmission in parts of Latin America, and rabies, once symptoms appear, is almost always fatal. There have been documented outbreaks where people in remote communities died after being bitten in their sleep, never realizing the danger until it was far too late. There is even a special ingredient in its saliva that keeps the blood from clotting while it feeds, a compound researchers nicknamed after Dracula himself. As deforestation pushes these bats closer to human settlements, the risk of those rare but deadly encounters only grows. A creature the size of a mouse, carrying one of the deadliest diseases known to medicine, is a genuine threat where it lives. Now to a snake that most people have never heard of, despite it holding two terrifying records. The gaboon viper, found in the rainforests of sub-Saharan Africa, has the longest fangs of any snake on the planet, reaching up to 5 centimeters, and it delivers the largest volume of venom of any snake per bite. It is a huge, heavy-bodied viper, and its intricate leaf-patterned skin makes it almost completely invisible on the forest floor. Here is the strange part. The gaboon viper is remarkably calm and rarely bites, which is the main reason so few people know its name. It would rather stay hidden than strike, but when it does bite, those enormous fangs sink deep, injecting a massive dose of hemotoxic venom that causes rapid swelling, agonizing pain, tissue destruction, and internal bleeding. It is a sleeping giant, harmless until the moment you step on the one patch of forest floor that turns out to be alive. Let's take a quick pause before the top 5. If you are learning something new, that is exactly the point. And subscribing helps me keep digging up these hidden killers for you. Now, on to the creatures that quietly kill in numbers. From here, the body counts climb sharply, and the animals get smaller. The tsetse fly looks like an ordinary, slightly large housefly, which is why almost no one outside Africa knows its name. But this insect carries a parasite that causes African sleeping sickness, a disease that has haunted the continent for centuries. When the fly bites, it can pass tiny parasites into the bloodstream, and they slowly invade the nervous system. The name comes from the disease's cruel later stage. Victims suffer confusion, personality changes, and a shattered sleep cycle that leaves them drowsy by day and awake all night before slipping into coma and death. Without treatment, the disease is generally fatal. For much of the last century, sleeping sickness killed vast numbers of people and made entire regions of Africa nearly uninhabitable. Determined control efforts have driven cases down dramatically in recent years, but the tsetse fly remains one of the most consequential insects in human history. If the tsetse fly is the historical killer, the sand fly is the quiet, ongoing one. It is tiny, smaller than a mosquito, and its bite is almost nothing. But some sandflies carry a parasite that causes leishmaniasis, a disease that comes in several forms. The mildest leaves disfiguring skin sores. The deadliest, called visceral leishmaniasis, attacks the internal organs, the spleen, the liver, the bone marrow, and it is fatal in the overwhelming majority of untreated cases. It quietly sickens hundreds of thousands of people a year across parts of Asia, Africa, and South America, mostly in poor rural communities far from good medical care. Almost no one in the developed world has heard of it, Yet it sits among the deadliest parasitic diseases on the planet, all spread by the bite of an insect you could barely see. At number 3 is a creature you have absolutely heard of, but almost certainly underestimated, the humble tick. We think of ticks as an itchy nuisance, but they are one of the most dangerous disease-carrying animals on Earth. A single bite can transmit a frightening list of illnesses, from Lyme disease to encephalitis to a range of dangerous fevers, some of which can be lethal if untreated. Certain species do something even more direct. The Australian paralysis tick injects a neurotoxin as it feeds, which can cause a creeping, ascending paralysis, and it kills pets and livestock every year. Some tick bites can even trigger a lifelong sudden allergy to red meat. What makes ticks so insidious is their patience. They wait on blades of grass for a host to brush past, latch on unnoticed, and feed for days. The animal that endangers you is not stalking you, it is simply waiting, and it is almost everywhere. At number 2, the boomslang, a snake whose most famous victim was one of the world's leading snake experts. For a long time, scientists assumed the boomslang, a slender, back-fanged tree snake from Africa, was basically harmless to humans because its fangs sit at the rear of its mouth. They were catastrophically wrong. In 1957, the renowned herpetologist Carl Patterson Schmidt was bitten on the thumb by a juvenile boomslang. Convinced it could not deliver a serious dose, he declined treatment, and, being a scientist to the end, he began keeping a detailed diary of his own symptoms. Over the next day, the venom, a powerful toxin that destroys the blood's ability to clot, caused him to bleed internally from his eyes, lungs, kidneys, and brain. He died roughly 24 hours after the bite, still recording his condition. His death rewrote the science, proving that a shy, overlooked snake could be every bit as deadly as the famous ones. And the deadliest animal you have never heard of is a snake that kills more people than any other on Earth, yet almost no one can name it. Meet the saw-scaled viper. It is small, often under 70 centimeters, and it lives across a vast band of Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia, frequently in densely populated farmland. On its own, its bite is not the most lethal, fatal in fewer than 10% of untreated cases, but here is the terrifying math. It is aggressive, it is superbly camouflaged, it injects venom in the vast majority of its bites, and it lives cheek by jowl with millions of people. The result is that this one small snake is believed to be responsible for more human deaths than all other snake species combined. It even announces itself, rubbing its coiled scales together to make a dry, sizzling rasp, a warning most victims never hear in time. There is a strange final twist, too. The very venom that makes this snake such a prolific killer has been studied to create a life-saving heart medication, a drug that helps prevent dangerous blood clots. The animal that takes the most lives has, in a sense, also helped save many. The deadliest snake on the planet, by sheer body count, is not the mamba or the cobra. It is a viper, the length of your forearm that hardly anyone has ever heard of. Every animal on this list proves the same quiet truth. Fame and danger are not the same thing. The creatures that kill the most people are often the small, the overlooked, and the unglamorous, the ones with no movie, no reputation, and no warning. Of course, there are other hidden killers I could have included, and I am sure some of you know one I missed. So tell me in the comments, which of these had you never heard of before? Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.